So good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Planning and Highways, this evening being the Tuesday the 4th of July. And before we start, I need to remind you that this meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. So, moving on to agenda item 1, Deputy Clerk.
Apologies for absence received from Councillor Jeff Brooks with Councillor Mike Cole substituting.
Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Cole.
I declare chair an interest in respect of item 6A and 6B. If I don't get paid as being chair of directions for Henwick Trust to budget or hearing.
Thank you. I suspect all of us have an interest in the speed bumps, which might be pecuniary given how aggressive they are when we next get an MOT. Anyway.
Items 6 and B, which relate to the planning applications, funds for the primary school, tomorrow.
So no further declarations of interest, then we'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting. So does anybody have any comments on those minutes? I see no one seeking the floor, so can we agree that those minutes are worthy to read and confirm these minutes? So I think Councillor Watts got in first. Councillor McCann. Councillor McCann was a bit slower on the uptake. So, and those in favour of that, so approving. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So, moving on to, and we note agenda item 3B. So, moving on to matters arising from the previous meeting.
Nothing from me, Chairman.
But anything else will come up under the, if there is anything that will come up under the agenda. So, agenda item 5, to receive and support a personal objection by the chairman, that's myself, to the Hambridge Lane planning application. Now, this is slightly unusual. The reason for this is that the Thatcham Town Council made objections on a number of grounds. And at that meeting, we had a representative of the agent speaking, and it is clear that this will be that they will take an active interest in the application, which will be called in. So I did some research on some of the points that they raised, and I've identified a couple of relevant matters which are quite technical, relating to National Audit Office. National Audit Office data as to whether the site is urban or rural, and I would like to get your endorsement to this. I don't think not seeking formal approval. Get your endorsement in order that I can speak to it if it goes to at the planning meeting. So basically, the 2 points, the 2 major points, is the relating to the to whether the site is urban or rural, and this is important because they are claiming that this site, which is right on the boundary of, effectively the boundary of Newbury, contributes to the rural economy. And the second point was to do with the separation between Newbury and Thatcham and the weight that should be given to the emerging, or the now draft local plan, which has a policy specifically prohibiting development there. So those are technical arguments, and, which I've added, and I would seek your endorsement so that to enable me to address them when that goes before the Eastern Area Planning Committee. Councillor McCann.
Yeah, because I'm such a new guy here.
Yes.
Could somebody just clarify, yourself or Deputy Clerk? Anybody can go to a council meeting. The Eastern Area. You could stand there and say, I'm a councillor for the area. Do you go there and you say, I'm Joe Public, I don't like it? Or do you go there with us agreeing here? You say, I'm representing the town. That's as long as you what.
So the at Eastern Area Planning, there are certain categories that are given allotted a time to, well, this is of course subject to the chair who's changed, but the previous practice was that certain categories of interested parties were allowed to speak, and each category had in total 5 minutes. And that was the town or parish council, supporters, objectors, the agent. There may have been others, but the point was that you get invited as a specific entity. And indeed, it's quite interesting if you have objectors that they have to somehow coordinate themselves, so they give a single view in 5 minutes. But we have the opportunity to speak at that, but it is a specific category and a specific invitation. Members of the public cannot speak if in general.
Okay, so again, because
Yeah.
like you said, this is quite a technical thing.
Yeah.
When you speak here, if you have misspoken or misrepresented something, is there any potential negatives for the council because you'll be effectively representing the council? I'm sure you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So of course, the meeting is recorded, so there's a record of it. The planning committee makes its decision on the night, so there's no and once it's decided to approve, there is no recourse for any objectors to reopen that if they object. Of course, if the council rejects the application, then the applicant can go to appeal. But in effect, I have to represent the council. There have been occasions when there have been two interested parishes, and we've divided the time between us. And I should say that's 5 minutes to speak, plus however much time the members of the committee wish to ask questions in return. But it is effective. Yeah. This one, of course, is not yet. It has not yet. It's only just completed its open period, and it's not yet scheduled for consideration by a particular meeting, but it has been called in, so it will get to a future meeting of Eastern Area Planning. Okay. So could I ask if you would be prepared to endorse this as it is addressing points, in fact, that we've addressed before in more detail.
It does actually say to support it.
To support it, rather to support the person objection, the wording on the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Watts proposing, Councillor McCann seconding. Those in favour? Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm sure I can support it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And of course, we'll come back to that, no doubt, at a future meeting to report on what Eastern Area Planning finally decides. So we move then on to another Eastern Area Planning Committee matter, which is Francis Baily School. And you will recall, well, in fact, you won't recall because I think it happened before the election, the meeting at which we discussed this, because it was in the restricted or the period immediately before the election, that we considered it's considered for the second time this particular application or pair of closely related applications, effectively two halves of the same thing, for a development at Francis Baily School, and this is an urgent requirement to replace 3 classrooms. It's 3 classrooms new. I think it's 3 classrooms old as well. That's 3 replacing 3. And the first time that we considered this, about the beginning of this year, we were concerned that the information did not address the environmental performance of the proposed development. And we asked, effectively, in order to get clarification, we have to object. That's the way that the system works. If we make no comment, we make no comment. So we did that, and further information was supplied. And at the meeting just before in April, we considered that and decided that the information did not. On that basis, we maintained our objection, but with great reluctance. And so the first agenda item 6A is part of that great reluctance. Was we asked the deputy clerk to write to Laura Farris to explain the invidious situation that we've been put in, where we felt we were being asked to approve something which didn't meet the environmental performance. But the reason for that was that the government grant to fund the work did not cover did not enable the school to deliver the policy that the government was requesting it to do so. So agenda item 6A, which is the correspondence there. There's on the back of that, there is the original letter, which was written because of the period of heightened political sensitivity that was written by the clerk without reference to us, to councillors, and that was, I think, was a very good encapsulation of the discussion that we had. And then you have on the front of the document, which is the two more recent elements. The top of it is the response in substance from the MP Laura Farris, and below is just a holding email. And she says there that she has raised those concerns with the relevant minister and will let us know if she gets a response. So very grateful that she has done that and highlighted that issue, which I'm sure is of wider concern than just this one application and this one school. So at the moment, we'll just I think for the purposes of the agenda, I think this is something that we'll come on to the discussion of the application itself under 6B, but for the purposes of this, to just note this, and I will just say that if we decide under 6B to attend the meeting, which is Eastern Area Planning, which is tomorrow, then my suggestion was that we focus on what we say in the letter rather than the planning application itself. But we'll come back to that. So I'll just note that. And Councillor Cole.
Certainly, the chair, totally.
Yeah.
Really with the meeting, I would just like to say thank you to the town clerk, deputy town clerk, for doing the email, which very well encapsulates it on them. But
yes,
I can't imagine Francis maybe is the only school in this dynamic. So thank you for that, because this
yeah. So we move on to item 6B, where we asked to note that the planning application will go before Eastern Area Planning Committee. So we are not that means we are not reconsidering the decision that we made, but I think as part of this we need to decide. I had to register. We have to register by 4 o'clock on the day before, so I've registered to be able to speak. Should we decide to do so, should the committee be minded that I should do so? My suggestion is that, slightly unusually, I think it would be worth us attending the meeting to explain the invidious situation that we were put in. My suggestion would be that we describe the situation, but we do not normally we would ask if we object to something, we would normally ask Eastern Area Planning Committee to object as well. My suggestion this time is that I just inform them of the situation. The Eastern Area Planning has a slightly different remit to this committee, and I will then leave it. My recommendation is we would leave it to them to decide on the balance, the planning balance before them as to what to do. But I think it would be worth us attending to explain how we reached how we were put in an invidious situation and how we resolved that. But as I in conclusion, that my suggestion is that we do not recommend refusal to the planning, Eastern Area Planning. We leave it to their judgment on the basis of the report that they've been given. Any further comments on that particular case? Councillor Cole.
Two chairs is coming up by tomorrow, and I'm very conscious of my position.
Yes.
I'm also very conscious of
yeah.
Therefore, I don't think it would be appropriate.
Yeah, thank you. But I say that the key point I'm making is that usually my suggestion is that I do not, when speaking for Eastern Area Planning, I do not ask them to refuse it. I just inform them why we reached the decision we did. Thank you very much. So if we note if you just want to note that final sentence of conclusion about the view that I will what is the decision to note of these two matters. Then at some point during the evening, I think this one comes second. Correct. So but at some point in the evening that I'll have that opportunity to speak. I think the other one is more controversial. So we then move on to the annual one, the winter Winter Service Plan 23-24, and I think the weather has provided us with a precursor of the winter, so not actually snow. So, would you like to introduce this one, Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk?
Yes, so each year West Berkshire Council carry out a consultation on the winter service plan, which provides details of the policies and procedures and practices employed by West Berkshire Council to ensure that it meets its responsibilities to provide the winter service across the district. So you will all have received this by email. I haven't printed it all out because it's 161 pages. So, but I have extracted out the roads pertaining to Thatcham and also pavements, car parks, and where salt bins are, and so forth. So this outlines, as I say, the West Berkshire's policies on this, and they're looking for you to decide whether you wish to make comment on this winter service plan by the 15th of August, I think it is. I don't think Thatcham Town Council made any comments last year. They did the year before.
So I think when we did the year before, we tried to encourage the West Berkshire Council to add some extra roads based on our experience. And I think that we discovered that there was the ability to change this is relatively limited because this is to comply with statutory duties. So it's things like bus routes and so on that are being covered in this more question, whether they've covered all their responsibilities rather than whether like certain other roads to be added to the list. So there wasn't much opportunity, and of course they have limited resources to address any particular snow incident because it has to be done in limited time. So can I suggest that we note this for this meeting, and if any council, a member of the committee wishes to readdress it at the next meeting, then they ask the clerk to add it to the agenda. But Councillor Cole.
Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
On the interruption, I do apologise. It's the only bit that we can do that unless it is somewhere else. The treatment covers tollway. It covers Hambridge, but this is the normal distribution road.
Yes.
So it's obviously a very well used road or series of roads. It covers tollway to one end, Florway to the other, one unnamed road, which is either Heath End Road or Northfield Road, but not both of those. So it appears, I'm sure it isn't, but it appears that there's a gap in the treatment of the normal distribution road, unless it is somewhere else where I can spot it. I'm sure it's covered because basically the Britain would be going along the road.
Well, in fact, it says tollway from the A4 to Northfield Road, and tollway does not extend to Northfield Road. It turns into Bowling Green Road at the junction with Gordon Road. So
So that's the primary treatment.
Yeah. That's very primary treatment.
Sorry, Chair, I think that. Sorry.
I was looking at the primary road network and yeah. There's a primary treatment, there's secondary treatment, and then there's road contingency treatment, and then there's paved footway treatment and traffic surface multi-story car park treatment and salt bins. It's our responsibility. That is the capital allowance of Planning and Highways Committee. It's salt bins and brick bins. I think if we look at the maps, then all of the maps actually do show the two maps, the primary treatment and the snow clearance treatment do show the whole of.
Yeah.
So if we can take that there is a problem with one of their online maps that it doesn't correctly name the streets. We see that when we get road closures occasionally that they. So I think if we take the maps are correct, and given that they have to drive along there anyway, that they probably would treat them. So what I suggest then is that we note it for this meeting, and then if any member or indeed any councillor wishes to make suggestions for changes to it, presumably additions, then they notify the deputy clerk in time for it to be placed on the agenda of the next meeting. But otherwise, we'll close it at this meeting. Yeah,
Couple of questions again. On page 99 and
Yeah.
111, we're on about salt bins.
Mhm.
You said something that we fill them up and we spread it. Is that right?
So we got appendix F is salt bins that are responsibility of West Berkshire Council, which are in fact, I think, looking at them, they're to do with access to public buildings in Thatcham. And then appendix G is the salt bins that are the responsibility of the Thatcham Town Council. That is there.
Okay, so F is West Berkshire do that.
Mhm.
G is we do that.
Yes.
We top it up, we fill it, and we spread it around. Is that what you're saying? Or is
I think we top it up when necessary, which hasn't been necessary for a
Yeah.
long time.
Not
so?
in my time anyway.
Well, the point I get you is we have an officer who goes around with a shovel and starts spreading the stuff when it snows. Is that correct? What's
I'm conscious because you've had the snow for an awfully long time. Those that may not know the answer.
No.
We do not spread the grid. We provide the grid, we top the grid bins up.
Yeah.
But we do not send anyone around to grid them. The majority of our grid bins are in estates or in small roads where basically we will rely on residents to.
So that's my point, is that who does it?
Residents do it. It's applied for the residents to do it themselves.
And they know, because I'm so new here, isn't it? Well, no way, actually, in a grip bin up the end of the road, I don't know how to go and take it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, I don't have advice on it at the moment. I've not been in the area for that. But yes, I will find out for you.
Thanks. How long has it probably been used? You might find there's a solid lump of salt in. So it might be worth when we have spare officer time to go and
Just update members at the next meeting would be perfectly reasonable.
a future meeting before the autumn.
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And I don't recall any request for actual expenditure for replenishing, and I've been on this committee for 4 years. Anyway, thank you for that suggestion. So we will, that's an additional point on that item, but we will note this, would decide not to respond unless the councillor wishes to raise a specific point before the next meeting. Speed bumps Station Road. To receive and consider notification from the council surgery held on the 3rd of June, a complaint regarding aggressive speed bumps on Station Road between the Moors and Piper's Lane. Do you have any additional?
I don't have
Okay.
any further information
Okay.
other than what was reported back at
So
council surgery.
I'll give a bit of explanation. So recently, West Berkshire Council, when they've been replacing speed bumps, so there are sort of 3 types of speed bumps. Traditionally, there was the bump that goes across the road. And that occurs in quite a few places. There are also square bumps made of raised areas of tarmac. And for example, they're at the bottom of Henwick Lane. And more recently, they've been using rubber bumps that are screwed down to the surface of the road. And these are the ones that are the subject of the complaints. And the reason that they have the 2 squares is to enable buses to pass over because they've got a wider wheelbase, they go over, they're not shocked, they don't receive the shock, except that they are placed in such a way that if someone parks beside them, the bus can't go over them anyway. They'll have to go right to the opposite side of the road. So the issue is these square rubber things which have quite a steep camber and a very sharp corner on the top of them. So any comments on views on this?
Stopped going.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they might as well have got 25 now all the way along,
I'm not,
because you can't really go very fast.
I would say, yeah, I would say probably, particularly people who have back problems, even 20 miles an hour is, if you go straight over them, 20 miles an hour is too fast. Yeah.
I would like to agree with the comments you've just made. It's a design issue.
Yeah.
There's other more traditional style tarmac speed bumps achieve exactly the same thing, and you don't get thrown around the car at 10 or even 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I have through the last couple of months through doing various things locally, I've had numerous residents complain about they get in and it's literally throwing them to one side or to the other, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's we should ask that they be replaced immediately and we push them because they're unacceptable. And they may be doing this as a trial run, and if they're anywhere within Thatcham, we should ask for them to be removed and they be replaced with more traditional tarmac.
I don't think there's any problem with the principle of them being rubber. It is the shape of them that's the problem.
So yeah, go back to tarmac.
Well,
Get rid of the problem.
or replacing with one which had the equivalent shape. I don't think there's any.
And not those nasty corners at the end.
That's the design of them. Just so
Thank you. Councillor Lund, please.
Do we know whether or not they have chosen to do these because they are easier to fit to the road? There's less road closure involved in applying them. Are they cheaper? A cheaper alternative? Is that why they've chosen to use this?
Councillor Beverton then.
No, I mean, in terms of what I was going to say, you may well have answered my question, Chair. I think the solution is changing the shape of them. So we can see where Councillor McCann's going in terms of changing them to concrete.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that they wear away, especially at the corners. They road, don't they? And then suspect the response you get back from the Berkshire Council if you suggested that. I think also to Councillor Watts' point, the section of Station Road is already 20 miles an hour, I think.
Yeah.
From the roundabout,
But not all the way along.
Right.
Yeah.
So that they've got those nasty speed
I would say-
bumps further.
I would say actually, if you were to go straight over them, they're 20 miles an hour. So the point is, you have to go aim with your wheels beside them. If for some reason you had to make a steer away, to say someone walking into the road at 20 miles an hour, that would be a very nasty shock that might actually cause damage to the vehicle. So I think, can I suggest that what we should be asking for is the shape, and then it's up to the council how they implement the shape. But it's the shape, I think, that is our concern. That getting the correct shape might involve replacing them with tarmac, but if they can find something more suitable.
yeah, but we support the complaint
Oh, yes.
from our residents.
Yes.
That they're not just slowing traffic down, they're becoming an inconvenience and a large irritation to the residents.
Yeah.
And people driving on that road.
And I think it's not only an inconvenience or whatever, a nuisance. It is for some people. It is actually a hazard and could potentially cause injury to if someone had a back problem, and cause damage to vehicles if they are forced to go over them rather than bit the wheels either side.
Could that potentially result in a training?
I think it could in principle, but it's quite difficult to demonstrate that unless the fault occurs at that time. The same with I think the same with potholes that you can in principle claim. But
It's made a difficult thing to go through.
Yeah.
Deliberately.
Yeah. So have you got the key points there?
Yeah, so you've highlighted that you feel they need to change shape of them. You need to be there, but change the shape. You're concerned about damage to vehicles, hazard, injuries. What else was there? You've had numerous residents' complaints. Yeah, I think that's.
Could I add as well, if I may, Chair? I would be concerned about the road. So I mentioned, you know, speed bumps. If they're wearing away, they're either not fulfilling their intended purpose of calming traffic and potentially causing damage to vehicles. Precisely. So I think that should be noted as well. Concrete.
Well,
Ultimately, it's down to us Berkshire Council, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Suspect concrete.
Well, I think the point is that presumably it is possible to buy less aggressive speed bumps made of in the same style, so that and that would achieve the result. It's up, leave the council to decide how to do it, but what we want is the shape to change. Thank you. So you've got that noted what we're asking. So can I ask for a proposer for that? And I'll propose that. Someone second that. Councillor Pemberton was seconding. Oh, okay, sorry. Did I? Okay, and those in favour of taking that course of action, thank you very much. That's unanimous again. So parking enforcement, Church Gate. Another notification complaint. We had a number of complaints over the last year relating to streets running off the Broadway, Church Gate, Needham Way, and so on. I happened to bump into several parking enforcement officer in the centre of Thatcham. I had a chat with them. They do apparently patrol those areas and do some enforcement. But obviously, they have a schedule which is not frequent enough. I wonder what course of action we might take on this. Councillor Cog.
Just questions of Deputy General Clerk of the Chair. Who's responsible for parking enforcement?
That's West
Berkshire Council, civil parking
Yeah.
enforcement, yes. So
Basically, the course of action to Berkshire and asking to schedule in.
can I suggest that we ask
all that area? Parking enforcement is a general issue.
Could I suggest that we ask two halves? We ask them what the schedule is for parking for parking enforcement, and to ask them particularly to pay attention to the areas adjacent to the town centre, not just the Broadway and the High Street.
I completely agree. We should first of all ask for the schedule.
Yeah.
And just find out how many times they're actually around.
Yeah.
Definitely. And about monitoring hotspots. But we could also ask, the other question is how many fines have they actually issued?
Yeah.
Because if they're saying they're going around 20 times a month and they're only issuing 2 parking fees, then you know somebody's not paying attention. So that might be a way of just tweaking out a bit of information for the future.
Councillor Cole.
No problem at all. Asking the schedule chair, might I suggest that we should say that would be supplied on part 2 terms. Okay. Otherwise.
Councillor Watts. Okay. Thank you. So so we asked them for the schedule on the part 2 confidential terms, and asked them to pay attention. I think the time limit, time limit for staying is higher outside the centre, and that may affect how they enforce it and whether people try to take advantage. Anyway, so there's those 2 elements, to ask for the schedule and to ask them to look at to focus on the areas beyond. adjacent to the Broadway High Street. Thank you. Those in favour of that? Do I have to have a proposal and second? Yeah, I can't remember if we did that, but Councillor Colthrop raised his hand and Councillor Watts was supposed behind. So those in favour? Those in favour, thank you. Thank you very much. So we then get on to planning applications, of which we have quite a large number of varying extent. So it's customary. What I will do, the clerk will start first presenting, and I will sort of attempt to see, and we'll have discussion, and I will attempt to get the mood of the members, and when I think that we've reached a consensus among members, I'll ask for that vote, so that we don't need to get a full presentation. It's clear that we already have a view. So I'll hand over to the clerk to start the ball rolling with plan number 1, 7 Henwick Lane.
So this is an application for a new roof and first floor, a ground extension and a garage to be relocated, and internal remodelling and enlarging driveway entrance. It's quite a substantial proposal. It's this property on the corner here of Brownsfield Road. So can you see that? Because it's quite small. This plot here. They currently have a garage at this sited here, and they want to demolish that and move it over here, and then this will be an enlarged driveway area. I'll go to spend my whole time going backwards and forwards on sides of these. This is the current elevations to the property. So it's a bungalow. I think it's a 3-bed bungalow, and they want to extend upwards. And I'm going to explain it through the plans. So this is the existing ground floor plan with the double garage to the side here, kitchen, dining room, living room, an internal bedroom 3, and then bedroom 2 and bedroom 1. And they wish to change this by moving the garage over to here, bring the dining room into this area with the kitchen and utility, extend this living room out here, and a study and a snug, and then go upstairs and have 5 bedrooms with 4 bathrooms, it looks like. So quite a substantial uplift. That's the roof plan. Looks like out of the dining area there'll be a patio area, and then this will be the driveway. It doesn't indicate how many cars for on the driveway. And to the those elevations, we've got roof lights, Velux roof lights. So if we have a look at the property itself, so that's the property. Just here on the corner. So it's at the end of Brownsfield Road, and Brownsfield Road, you probably know, is mainly bungalows. Exclusively bungalows, but on this front edge, it's a bungalow in amongst 2-story properties. So it does not, let's see, got any other information? That's probably about it. I don't know which zone that's in. I would imagine zone 2. Yeah. So if it goes to being a 5-bedroom property, it should be about 2.5 parking spaces made available for it. At the moment, they've got 2 in there.
And if you're not aware, West Berkshire Council does not count garages as parking spaces on the grounds that 90% of garages are full of things other than cars.
You'd be able to get car into the garage.
Yeah.
You look good there anyway.
Yeah.
So they're looking to put the new garage here, and then we're going up the see what the overlooking would be like here.
Can you go back to the site plan? I've just got a question about that. Because so I was checking about where the front of that, because of course that's a bungalow, whereas all the others are houses. So I was seeing where the building line was compared to the neighbouring houses. So it's effectively on the same line as the two neighbouring houses. I think that one above is also 2 stories at the front, if I recall. So it's not putting a 2-story thing further forward to the road than anything than what's beside it. Actually, can you go to the one above? Just for more detail there. So that's shown there that it's actually still slightly behind the one to the north.
With regard to materials, they are looking to have grey eco-plastic roof tiles, composites, shiplap boarding to the top level, I think it is, and rough cast white render to match the existing building that's there. Down, another look at the proposed elevations. So that's sort of like the rear elevation backing onto the other bungalow behind it. And then you've got the west elevation, which is
where the parking is going to be.
yes, so the parking will be along here. And the west elevation is obviously the fronting the Henwick Lane.
And those patio doors will look out onto the front of the neighbouring property on Brownsfield Road.
And also,
which is in that first house. Perhaps I should note that I live just up above Henwick Lane, but not close enough to be affected, but close enough to know it quite well. Councillor Cole.
I will profess to be an amateur in the matter of planning and construction chair, but it does seem to be a rather overdevelopment of the plot size to me.
Yes, it's a factor. It's a factor, but whether it's a major factor, given how many we see of this sort of nature, because if you just go further south, you end up with Francis Close, which is a masterpiece of intensive development. So yeah, it's that one there. Yeah. So
sorry, do we know where the front door is in relation to the front door? Be staying where in the position that it is.
Yeah.
So the parking will still be along the back.
Yeah.
Where the bifold doors open out onto.
So anyone have any concerns with what we've seen so far? Councillor Pemberton.
So, I mean, I do know Barfield Road reasonably well, as I'm sure you do as well. We often receive complaints about vehicles parking quite close to the junction in Henwick. That happens now.
Yes.
And I guess the danger is if you're creating more bedrooms, more habitable space, you're potentially having more visitors and more time in these vehicles parked there.
Yes.
That would be my concern. Whether that's a genuine planning reason to reject the application or
Well, I'd suggest, in fact, I have spoken to the resident, and he has one of the reasons for widening the access is he has been blocked in, because at the moment he has to come straight out, and there was a car parked opposite. So he has purchased some cones privately. What I would suggest what we do is, if people are, if that's the main concern, we could make no objection, provided that highways are satisfied that there is adequate parking for the new size of the house. That's what we've done on a number of occasions, because it's not quite clear how they count rooms and how they count parking spaces. So my suggestion is no objection, on condition that this is highways that deals with that's
Yeah.
parking on the West Berkshire Council highways are content with the provision of parking spaces.
So now, can I just clarify as well, the nature?
Yeah.
Are we talking about widening the access point? So
Yeah, so
the driveway is going to be wider, and that would include amending the existing.
well, I don't know what that. Yeah, but presumably, but I don't know for certain whether that is. That would be
It's more of a query.
that's a detail for the highways department to comment on, I think. But yeah, that's. Thank you. So I will propose that we make no objection on that on that condition. Councillor McCann seconding. Those in favour of that. Thank you. That was unanimous. 5 Link Way.
Right, 5 Link Way. So it's a semi-detached house, which I think was built circa 2003. Apparently there was a previous application only within this month, I think it was last month, for a certificate of lawful development to create the to convert the loft space to habitable room, but that was refused. So it looks like they've put the planning application together to cover that now. Mainly because there was a condition on the property when it was originally built that there should be no subsequent revision, additions, extensions, and so forth to it. And that's why it's come before planning now. So they currently have living room, dining room, kitchen, dining room, sorry, and WC here, and 3 bedrooms on the first floor. And they're proposing to, sorry to wood you about. Get it moving in the right, be able to see. So yeah, that's the existing elevations there, and these are the proposed elevations. They're looking to put Velux windows to the front and rear of the property with what they call a cottage style dormer to the side of the property, and then going up into the top roof space to create a bedroom. It's a section we're proposing to do. Where it's located. So it's this property here. This would be the side that the cottage dormer would be here. And then obviously the Velux to maybe that gives us any better. That's a bit.
Okay. So
Highways came back with no objections. And it's,
okay, so any particular concerns, or do we make no objection to this one? Relatively separate from the neighbouring houses. So I see nobody expressing concern. So can I suggest from the chair that we make no objections to this one? So seconder for that, Councillor McCann. Thank you, and those in favour. Thank you. Unanimous again. So number 3, 27 Trefoil Road. And this is a relatively modest extension, and I put this on, asked for this to be on the agenda for a specific reason, because this application includes the construction of a fireplace chamber and a flue, which is effectively a chimney breast on the outside of the house. And this is the first time I recall such a development, and I thought it would be worth us considering it in the context of our policy of climate emergency and also the issue of particulates from open fires and wood burning stoves. So, I think the point is that we'll discuss it, and if we will use this as a precedent for any future applications. So if we're content with it, we won't bring forward future ones into the committee. So I just wondered what people felt about the addition of open fireplaces to buildings that are modern houses that are already heated by, presumably adequately heated.
I was just going to see if there are any plans, I think.
There is, yes, yeah.
So,
What sort of fuel?
It doesn't say that they did go through they did all they described as the physical construction of the fireplace, the opening of the fireplace and the chimney breast on the outside of the building. There is, I think, some other things as well, aren't there? That's not the only part, but that was the element of it that I thought was worthy of
yes, so
consideration.
the actual whole proposal is the construction of a single-storey extension to the rear of the property, fireplace chamber here, and the installation of the flue and an application to increase the fence height around the property. So that's the whole application. Page down. So these are the existing elevations. And then the proposed rear elevation with its single-storey extension right across the back. And you can see here the chimney to the side with the flue going up.
But it's a flue. I'd have thought the gas fire wouldn't, if it was gas powered, it wouldn't require such a tall flue.
And then here we've only got the indication of where they're building out for the chimney here. And the rear extension is just to extend the kitchen dining area and the utility area into the rear of the property. And then their other proposals are to change the height of the fence to the rear of the property up to 2 meters 430, and to the side slightly higher as well. So if we have a look, property, it's this one here. So the chimney would be opposite the neighbours there, and then they're looking to increase the height of this fence and the fence to the rear. So
Chair.
Yes. Councillor Problem with this,
Sorry.
Yes.
Chair. The height of the fence, that backs onto Brownsfield Road.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done exactly that. It's across from the middle part. And a bit of noise and a few other social problems. There.
Yeah.
As I should declare a minor interest in, I live in Trefoil Road, I'm nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the main reason I brought
the factor of the fireplace and chamber. I know we have a climate emergency. Played some years ago. I worry about us imposing a view on a private residence when we don't know the nature of the fire that is going to be there. If it is going to be a gas fire, well, that's got no particulars. If it is going to be a log burning log burner, you can only now kill dried wood in a log burner. If it's going to be an open fire, then that's probably another matter. For us to make a policy decision
Mm.
on whether we are going to support or not, or
Yeah.
object or not to the principle of having chimneys.
Yeah.
I would think would be a very, you used the word yourself, Chair, precedent.
Yes.
I would be very reluctant to see us setting a precedent for something where we don't know the nature of what will be. And if someone says they're putting a gas fire in, as I confess I've done myself, there is no problem in ripping out the gas fire, replacing the cowl on the top and putting a fire in anyway.
So what I would suggest then is that we suggest that they clarify the nature of what is intended to go in the fireplace, and we would make no objection on condition that it is not an open fire. Okay.
Again, it's that word precedent.
Okay, so if people are comfortable, then I suggest that then we make no objection. If people are, Councillor Lunn.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just looking at the property next door,
Yeah.
which appears to have a chimney.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
the only one.
Virtually
Yeah.
every property
Okay.
in Trefoil Road has a chimney.
Okay. So shall we say then we make no objection, given the views of councillors, that we make no objection to this application at all?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll be I think that also tells me about what we need to bring to future committees, that we will only do so if there's something of particular concern about the specifics of what's been proposed. That unless it's clear that there is a particular issue, we won't bring any future matters of this to the committee. Thank you. So number 4, it's a bit more major. The demolition of an office building. This is Thatcham Business Village, Colthrop Way. Demolition of a substantial office building, construction of a storage and distribution warehouse for use within class B2 and or B8. And if I recall correctly about the planning, effectively they're interchangeable. So one is office warehouse, and the other is one is in light industrial. I think the other is warehousing, and for most purposes they're interchangeable, so that you can't actually apply a condition of only one, not the other.
B2 is general industrial, used for industrial process other than one falling within the class E, previously class B1.
Yeah.
And B8, which is storage or distribution, that class includes open storage. So.
Okay. I think when we look at the plan, we'll see that it's actually the actual design is fairly dedicated to warehousing, but okay.
Okay.
Councillor Cole.
General comment, Chair, before we go into the detail. Thatcham needs more huge warehousing, which provides special entertainment with an awful lot of lorries, like it needs a holiday.
Yeah. Okay, so perhaps we ought to just have a quick look at what they're proposing, which is to confirm that's what they're doing. But so back to the clerk to introduce this one.
Okay. So let's just show the site so you can get your bearings on it. So it's just here, Colthrop Lane, and they're looking, it's just this section here. They're looking at demolishing this office block and putting it in a storage distribution warehouse in that section there. So going back to the plan, so that's that bit. So bear with me. Can you see that okay? So yeah, they're looking at this size unit with office to the top floor, a loading dock here. So we've got 2 loading docks there, and then an access door level loading there. Sliding gate in these 2 sections, outdoor space, cycle shelters, parking and electric charging points they've indicated there. These are the elevations. So these are the bays where they're loading. And the other elevations. They are looking to, they have sought pre-application advice on this apparently. And in the pre-app advice, it stated that a BREEAM excellent rating should be sought and considered from the outset. What else have we got to show you? This is just the roof plan with the solars on it. This is the section details.
So one thing to note there is it's quite, although the office building was 2 stories, it was sort of a fairly small scale construction. This is quite dominating the site compared to the Thatcham research on the south side and that other unit of offices on the north side.
Looks like they've got also possibly issues with the levels as well, so trying to I do have the design and access statement if you wanted to have a little look through, but
I did look
that as
through it and
well.
it didn't seem to say it's all about the sort of description of the site. It doesn't really go into the rationale for why we need for anything.
So question from me, if I may. It looks as though this proposed development it forms part of the Thatcham Business Village. So you've got the office block that you go into the village, and there's another building right at the far end, just as you meet the A4. Presumably that building further north is staying. It's just the 2-story office block that's going.
So that's staying and that's going.
Right.
And that's all about that warehouse is pretty close to the road as well, I think. So so we've confirmed, I think, effectively that despite the class of use, it's effectively dedicated as a warehousing facility. It's pretty substantial and pretty intensive use of the site. Councillor Cole has already commented that we have more than adequate supply of warehousing in Thatcham compared to the capacity of the road through Thatcham to take it. I'm leading towards the view that we would object to this application. Councillor Cole?
I think, Chair, I'm aware that Thatcham Business Village, the offices are not fully open. It's been signed up. So
Okay. Yes.
It's for term. So
Yes.
I'm aware that we are not in a position where we would be saying we are taking a huge amount of jobs away because those offices are already occupied, which I suspect is the reason for
Yes.
in the first place. I think the primary objection I have, we already have poor air quality on the A4, and again declare an interest as Francis Baily has on as part of the trust. That is by Francis Baily, where obviously we've got a large primary school. And that area going through Thatcham, the air quality is already of poor.
Yes.
Further lorry movements, which inevitably come back.
Yeah.
Unless they go towards London.
Yeah.
They go towards the A34 or motorway, but go the other way through Newbury. So my primary objection, I have to say, would be on just the lorry movements and air quality and the increasing in both of those. If again, that is a valid reason for objection to a plan.
There's certainly valid reasons why we can put forward and up to the West Berkshire Council to decide whether they how that affects the planning balance. So
it's similar. I think you can ask for the expected traffic movements as well.
That's an interesting point because the previous development that we had, which was further along, to the east of this site. Part of that application did include a traffic study. This one has no traffic study associated with it. So what I suggest is that we, if I try to summarize the points, and this is a full application, by the way, so this is a final thing. So if we object on the grounds of the, and I would also mention in passing that although the site may be underutilized at the moment, this is not the only alternative use that might be put forward, and therefore we shouldn't say because it's underutilized, therefore we have to accept this particular application. And of course, but it's not the remit of this group to discuss what the application might be, but bearing in mind that there are alternatives. Even in warehousing, that's a pretty massive construction. So the reasons given for by Councillor Cole, and in addition, the scale of this is over dominating of the area. And I would suggest one further comment, which you might consider, that to say that if the council is minded to approve the application, then it should be a condition of the application of granting it that all vehicle movements go east to the junction at Theale and not through the Thatcham town, not through the town of Thatcham, which I think can be imposed as a planning condition. And then we can at least request it to be considered as a planning condition. Well, the point is,
I know your point's well made.
So the point is we can request it, and then the officers have to explain what, give their view on it.
Can I just
Yeah.
I think I'm grateful to sort of Councillor McCann for raising the issue of traffic movements. Actually,
Yeah.
I endorse everything that,
Yeah.
that Councillor Cole said. I live on that main road. I live on the Bath Road.
Yeah.
So anything that reduces lorry movements between Theale and Newbury are to be welcomed. I think the difficulty that we're always going to have is that this is an established industrial estate. Lorries move in and out of it already. Yes, this will add to it, but in the grand scheme of things, how many extra lorry movements does it add? I don't want it either, but I think also we have to be a little bit realistic in terms of what's already there and the need for political combinations.
As a town council, we can express our views, and then it's up to the officers of West Berkshire Council to take those into account and give a planning view, and then it's up to Eastern Area Planning to give their view, which is subject to appeal. I don't think there's anything wrong with us expressing our view, even if we are not entirely confident that will be will determine the outcome.
That's right, I haven't disagreed with anything.
Yeah. So, and also the other point which we said is the absence of any traffic study associated with the application. So if we object with all of those those grounds for objections and the comment about if the council's minded to if they could make a planning a condition of granting that the traffic movements go east, which of course if they did would affect the desirability of the site. But so have you got all the points that you do you want to go back?
We're proposing to object on the grounds of the issue of air quality with the extra lorry movements and traffic movements, the scale of the proposed building on the site, dominating the site, and the absence of any traffic study as part of the application. And then also that if the council is minded to grant it, then there'd be a condition that all vehicles go east to the junction at Theale.
Can I ask a question? Do these new developments come with a sill, or is it only new housing that does it?
I think it's mainly housing, but because it's to do
in all the developments and all the sill breakdowns I've seen, I've never seen industrial. It's normally that.
Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way, Chair, on all of that, apart from the stipulation about lorry movements. request for consideration.
No, it's requested it would be a condition of approval. If the council, if West Berkshire Council's minded that they would apply a condition, that's a lot of applications have conditions. So there was one that required that they turned left and then went round the roundabout. But so it is something which I think would be within the, in principle, within the remit of planning law. Whether it's a reasonable condition is a matter for West Berkshire Council officers to decide.
Your point's actually well made about if you want to go across the road, but actually if you turn left, there's a roundabout you can get across. And those are not, these are reasonable constraints.
So the point is, it falls within the remit of planning law, but it's up to the West Berkshire Council to decide whether it's a reasonable condition in the circumstances. Thank you. Thank you. So we got that. Read out the comments. So would someone like to propose that we make object on that basis? Councillor Cole, seconder. Councillor Pemberton was second. Those in favour of such an objection, thank you. That's unanimous again. We then move on to item 5, which is also an industrial one in the Colthrop Lane area, but seems a little less substantial.
So, again, I'll locate this on the map so you've got an idea of where we're talking about. So it's this site here. Just extend out a bit so you can see it in relation to where we previously were. So this is an application for a temporary planning permission for the erection of a canopy structure for a period of up to 5 years. So the history on this is there's actually a other planning application going through, I believe, for which is pending consideration for the erection of a building on the site. The proposed canopy would not be in addition to this, but rather provided as a temporary shelter until such time that the development is approved and constructed. So that's the sort of history behind it. The original planning application did come before the council in 2022, and the original planning application Thatcham Town Council had no objections to. So while this is all going through, they're seeking this temporary shelter for this period. So if I show you what they're talking about, so it's to be sited on this site just in that bit there, and they're looking for something like this. The structure is open on all sides, with its primary function to give an area of shelter from rain or strong sunlight for the site operatives. The structure would essentially be screwed in place, and thus then is no requirement for significant foundations or building operations. It says canopy is prefabricated structure and thus can be erected in an extremely short space of time.
So given the surroundings,
Could you just tell me the size of that? Is that, I can't read the meter.
Sorry,
8 meters tall,
Right. That's a lot of shelter for guys who are 2 meters, but
Yeah. But I think it's a vehicles as well.
so
So,
we're
Yeah.
going to run in there and do maintenance work
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It looks like that's what it.
so if you looked at the photograph, showed a lot of containers, but it's also used for parking of vehicles, including buses, if I recall correctly.
trying to see what height that is.
So it's 6.2,
6.2, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the actual, if you scrolled up a couple bits, no, the other one.
I'm sorry.
Scroll down, next one. What's the meter size?
30
That's
30 square.
30 meters long,
30
Yeah,
meters
30
long.
meters each.
by 30 meters.
Meters,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're going to be doing more than sheltering, getting out the rain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But-
okay.
but given the surroundings,
That's probably only 7 lorries.
Yeah.
Parked under there.
It's probably about in that bit
you
there.
can see that it's the neighbourhood is not exactly the and that building of the other side of the railway line is quite substantial. It's been completed now. Councillor Cole.
No objection.
Yeah, okay, so no objection, so we'll. And adjacent parish, Newbury Clay Hill, this is London Road, so that's the opposite side. If you don't know the boundary of the parish, at this point, the boundary runs along London Road, so we're on the south side and Clay Hill, Newbury is on the north side.
Sorry, did I just miss that? Did you vote on the no?
Sorry, I think we didn't vote on it, so we had a proposal and second, are those in favour of no objection? Thank you, that was unanimous. So, have we seen something like this before? It might have been a neighbouring property.
I'll go through it.
Okay.
Give me 1 moment. So I'll show you the site first. This is, to get your bearings, just on the corner here.
Okay.
Yeah,
On the corner, okay.
right. So it's the land to the rear of this property here. Now, it's proposing the construction of a new 2-storey, 2-bedroom house and associated garden and parking. Having looked back at the property history, there have been various applications on this site over the last 20 years, of which most of them have been refused. Well, they have been refused because they've got nothing there. They consist of a 4-bed house, 4 times 1-bed flats, 2 semi-detached houses, 2 2-bed flats, 3-bed house. They've tried.
Can I make a suggestion before we get to the details? So, although the property so we have to the bottom right, we have the Hambridge Lakes, which is part of Thatcham parish, but is not residential at all. There's no public access to that. We're talking about the rear of the property on the boundary, so there's no, and it's a single plot, single property, but the impact to Thatcham is very minor, if at all. Can I suggest that there's no reason for us to make an objection for this particular neighbouring parish because there's no impact to Thatcham parish? Councillor Cole.
I do recall this one coming up twice in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
This
Mhm.
council.
Mhm.
Some of the objections the last time, the fact that there was furniture in school,
Yeah.
as well as development of the site, and just a large one. As you say, it doesn't affect our
Yes.
parish.
Mhm.
It's definitely getting smaller.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is.
Well, there may be future opportunity for the second one in on that large block. Anyway, but the point is, I think whatever you do behind that main property, which I think is fairly run down. Yeah, but anyway, the point is that this particular proposal, and indeed anything that follows it, is unlikely to have any impact on the parish. Therefore, on my suggestion, we make no objections. I'm proposing that from the chair, and Councillor Cole is sort of nodding. Is that a second? Thank you. Those in favour of making no objections? Thank you very much. So, in accordance with the policy, the following 3 are smaller proposals, which we would not normally consider unless there's a particular concern from a councillor or if there's been any objections from neighbours. So, turning to the clerk.
There's been no representation, so.
Thank you. And they're actually all pretty small things, aren't they? Well, one's an application to determine if prior approval is required. So we'll note those 3 and then move on to agenda item 11, planning matters. Anything?
Nothing further from me.
Okay. Okay. Planning matters. Check. Agenda item 12, traffic management. So 12A, outstanding highway matters.
Yes. So we have had some updates, which I've added onto this sheet. We had an outstanding issue with drainage outside Stitch in time. We hadn't received any feedback, so we contacted West Berkshire Council again, because they originally said there was an assessment date in February, but we've not heard anything. So we contacted them, and they're looking into it, and they've given a little explanation of what they might do there. Where are we? So yeah, looking at site survey, traffic management to enable them to lift some of the cupboards and work out what you could feed the drainage into. They'd asked if anyone had got any photographs. I haven't got any, but that was it. So that's the current response on that one. So we'll see whether there'll be something further coming along from that. My thoughts. No. Wybrow Court, we reported at the previous meeting, and we're waiting for the active travel Crown Mead scheme to come before us, maybe to resolve that one. There's lopsided signage on the A4 eastbound. We've re-logged that with West Berkshire Council, and they've passed that to the relevant team for action. Apparently we should receive a response within 10 days, and that was 22nd of June. So any time now, we'll chase again. We had an issue with, I think council have reported this, road surface troughs exiting the garden centre roundabout onto Tollway. 2 troughs in the road. I don't know whether that's been resolved.
Probably help you with that. Sorry to interrupt. Those 2 issues relating to the garden centre roundabout seem to have been passed my way as well. As you rightly said, they were referred by a previous ward member. When I raised the second of those with the highways team over West Berkshire, the surface troughs, they effectively came back and said they weren't going to do anything.
Yeah.
And the reason they're not going to do anything is because they don't believe it's what's called a Brooks level difference on the carriageway. You know, the displacement of the road has to exceed a certain level over a certain distance, and according to highways it doesn't. So they've effectively said no to that. Whether we can push back, I don't know. I'm happy to, because I've already picked up as the ward member.
My view is I think that I would tend to agree with them on that point. I think that in the scheme of things, that is a fairly small difference. We could look, but it wasn't one that I would work. I wouldn't prioritise it in my request to the council.
Yeah, I mean that's the answer I got.
Yeah.
What point of the report apparently was that vehicles had left the carriageway at that junction.
No, so it's not that serious.
So I might close that one then.
Yeah. And of course, the adjacent problem on the roundabout has been resolved. They have resurfaced that, and I think remarked it now as well. So that's,
Then I had a noisy manhole cover on the left side of Coombe Court on the A4, which reported via report problem. We asked them whether it had been carried out. We got a response that apologies, look back on records, cannot find a quotation being received, or chase up the inquiry as soon as possible. In the meantime, thank you for bringing that to our attention. But I've got no date or anything as to when that will be done. And then I've had 2 that have closed since we last met. I've closed them because officers have observed that the actions have been completed. We don't actually receive an update from West Berkshire Council that something has been completed. So it's just generally through observation as to whether something's been done. Although I understand that West Berkshire Council are working towards being able to provide that kind of information within their report problem, but they're migrating over onto a new system at the moment. So once those have been logged, we'll might get updates. But yeah, at the moment it's a case of we have to observe if something's been done or not. And then finally, I've got a couple that I've got an unknown status to. I think it's because they were previously advised by a councillor directly to West Berkshire Council. So I've got no reference or log to follow them up. So yeah, I've got no report back on those, basically because they're directly from a councillor to West Berkshire Council.
These will actually be bounced to the next meeting, so we can obtain
Yeah.
a response.
Take a look. I think the bollards almost certainly will have been resolved because that was
It probably will have been.
that's a very significant traffic management point at the if it failed, depends if it fell down or up, but if it fell up, then I'm sure it's been set because the bus route goes through there.
Yeah.
But so the other two, the pavement, I suspect is a long going. That was okay. So we can take a look. Okay, thank you. So I think that's probably to note. So a note. So decision notices. Okay. 12B, so highways matters. Any highways matters?
Just to advise that since the publication of the agenda, I think councillors were made aware, or an email went round about the fact that Bowling Green Road in Thatcham would be closed between the 26th and 30th of June, and we had notification that that would be extended until tomorrow, it's the 5th of July. So that's
And that's the residential part of Bowling Green Road, not the part that is part of the relief.
So that was just that one. Moving on to decisions. So yeah. So first one was Chapel Street, where Thatcham Town Council objected to the demolition of the end of the 3 properties there, and it's been approved by West Berkshire Council. That one, I know councillors were aware of that one. Then we've got, as previously mentioned, this planning application just came before us. So this was the application to convert the loft space to a habitable room, and that was a
requested for
that's the one.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that was that, but we obviously just considered the new application. 45 Druce Way, we had no objections, but we put in a condition on that one, and it was approved. Kingsland Centre, last time it was determined if prior approval was required to convert a first floor office space units above the bank, previously occupied by the bank, into 3 self-contained flats with ancillary refuse and parking facilities. It was noted at the last meeting. It has actually come back as prior approval had been granted, and also they granted the application as well in one go. So it hasn't come back to us to be considered again.
Scroll down.
Yep, sorry, apologies. And then finally we've got Northfield Road here, which Thatcham Town Council objected to, and West Berks have also refused that one.
That was, if I remember, the drop curb was right on the corner.
It was, yeah. So we objected by the reasons cited by Highways, because, yeah, as you say, it was on the drop curb, would have been on the corner of the road. So that's
Okay.
mostly.
So we then have report from town council appointees to outside bodies, both of which are relating to flood management. So there's don't think there's anything to report at this meeting.
Not at this moment.
There may well be something to report at the next meeting. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, that there is a meeting at the Memorial Hall tomorrow concerning the proposed works of the deviation works on main field. I believe there are some 73 foundation. Five. That's going well.
Can I just ask a question? Yes. And I know Owen's here. Has Owen or the group, the outside body that the floods
Forum.
flood forum, have they forwarded the plans and drawings to the council?
So
Have
this
we
is,
seen anything of it?
the question is whether the flood forum has seen, you mean whether the flood forum has seen the current plans?
And I assume that somebody would have sent us a copy of what they were
Okay,
doing.
so
You know what I'm saying?
So the issue is that, as far as I'm aware, Thatcham Town, although the development includes the north side of the cricket pitch, which is land owned by Thatcham Town Council, we have not been consulted as yet. So that way, I think that this meeting, although it's a closed meeting, it's an extremely large meeting, and probably not the best place for us to go into detail about the town council's views. But I think the key point that we wish to make is that we haven't been consulted, and therefore we would like to be to have a discussion with just us, which is about the proposals affecting our land, and also the broader issues affecting the town, which we have an interest in, but that's more for the meeting. But given that we haven't been consulted on a proposal which affects land which we own, is a bit surprising.
Yeah, I'm not here to make council policy.
Yeah.
But if it's my house, my land, you want to come across it.
Yeah,
You should at least ask us.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what members feel, but that's
Yeah. So I think the point is that, given that the relevant officers will be there, that's one point to raise tomorrow. But I don't think we probably, that's not the best place to go into discussion about what the view is. We just want to be told to remind them that we do need to be contacted.
Would we then instruct the clerk to seek that information tomorrow? It could be stopped.
okay.
So I say that's, you know.
So interesting question, because I have seen the plans, and I can't remember on what basis I received them. I think that might have been through the Flood Management Forum, but who received them?
As the planning committee, I'm sure we can ask the clerk.
Yeah.
To ask for a
Yeah.
copy of the drawings, and the proposal be sent to the council so that we could discuss it at
think-
one of our meetings. That's not unreasonable. We are the planning committee.
I think we probably ought to invite somebody to come and explain them as well, because
I'm not against it.
I wasn't convinced with the plans that I saw that the full area of land that was being proposed was necessary for the to be taken away. So we need an explanation as to why.
So is there,
So we'll,
so my point is, Chair, shall we as a council, as a
Yeah.
committee, ask the clerk to ask for a copy and that it comes before at our next meeting? For discussion.
more than a copy. I think that we need a presentation of more than a copy.
I would be looking for a presentation
Yeah.
if there are two aspects. As I see it, there is access to which at the moment there's two proposals. One that's been rejected, which is coming from through the Whitelands estate. The other one is at the moment going kind of straight up through the car park with a dirty great low loader, and it's actually taking out quite a chunk of the amenity involving one.
And there's a lot of
No, children's play area will be closed and partially flat.
Oh, even better.
So the plans that I've seen are interesting. So I think we need to be involved purely and simply because yes, it affects the town, obviously. But also it's shaping a part of the cricket field, which, as Chair says, it's our land, so I think they do involve.
So I think one question we can talk with offline is whether that discussion at this stage should be with planning or with R&A, who is responsible for the asset side of things. When it comes to a detailed proposal, then it would come to us. But we'll talk offline with the mayor.
So, as I understand it,
Yes.
there's a stakeholder meeting tomorrow,
Yes.
and there will be an exhibition on 2 dates in July and 2 dates in August. And there's currently an online consultation, which people can feed back to, which I think expires in about 30 something days. I think I think it's the and then I believe it's just trying to think. I think it's going to town centre committee, possibly. I think
Well, we need to sort that out.
I need to double check.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Perhaps we just need to be
So,
updated.
Yeah.
but we'll keep you updated with the.
but I think that my view is that the direct impact on land that we are is more than can be addressed through a public meeting and an exhibition. We need to have a direct bilateral discussion with whichever is the relevant committee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify? There is a statutory body, so they can actually propose something. We cannot object to it. Is that correct? We cannot block them by saying, "Well, we don't want to show land. You're not doing it."
So because it's flood works, so that the grounds are limited, but I think there's a question of reasonableness still about it. But that's one of the things that we would wish to ask them if we were having a discussion, not in a public meeting. Councillor Cole.
Even if it's purely influence, Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Still like
Yeah.
with protecting or not. And decided it's perfectly reasonable. Bearing in mind that it will protect houses to the south of the airport. But I think we should at least be open, consulted. No problem.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that. So we'll await and discuss offline with the mayor as to which committee needs to be involved at which stages in the process. If they're going to give a presentation, it needs to go to the right committee for the principle, and then the details. Obviously, when it comes to a planning application, it will come here. Yes, but we may not be the right committee for the earlier stage of the discussion. But we'll deal with that offline through the mayor. Thank you very much. And the meeting, we've come to the end of the agenda, so the meeting is then closed. Thank you very much.